Yo, what's up? MGG here, and I'm here to give you another Should You Read video. Today, I'm doing Tokyo Revengers. So, let's get right into the overview of the story. Tokyo Revengers is a manga by Wakui Ken, or Ken Wakui. And it's about a 26-year-old kid named Takamichi who one day basically discovers that his high school sweetheart or middle school sweetheart got killed by a gang he used to be associated with or familiar with in middle school. Because of that, it kind of like affects his emotion. He gets depressed, and then he ends up getting pushed onto a train track and time leaping back to 12 years ago on the same day, where he eventually is able to kind of like hang out with his own friends and live that dream of being able to see them one last time before he was about to die. But as it turns out, he has the ability to time leap, which he figures out later on in the story. So his mission then becomes to save the life of the middle school girl that he fell in love with by going back to the past and changing the future. And in that, there basically is multiple time leaps back and forth, multiple future changes, but that's more or less the story. So let's talk about what the story is like. Basically for me, this story was pretty good. There's two pieces to it. One, if you're a fan of delinquent manga or the delinquent genre at all, you'll feel right at home at Tokyo Revengers. Tokyo Revengers pretty much is a delinquent manga, but I think made more palatable for a mainstream audience. So the time leaps, the supernatural aspect to the story, and a lot of the other pieces that aren't really delinquenty are really there to pull in more mainstream readers. So if you're a delinquent manga fan, you'll sit right at home here. And then if you're someone that's new to that genre, it may or may not be a hit or miss for you, but I think the story does well at executing stuff. Like, I felt real emotion for a lot of the characters, especially like when different things happen to them due to the time leap. No spoilers. And I think in general, like, I'm a sucker for delinquent manga, so this, I just immediately got used to the story. I understood kind of a lot of the plot points that happen because it's just stuff that normally happens in this type of manga. So I thought so far like the story was really great. It's keeping me hooked, so much so that I'm doing this chapter impression off the first 20 chapters. But honestly, after reading the first 20, I went ahead and caught all the way up to the series. So if that doesn't tell you this is good, then I don't know what else will. After that, let's get into the characters. So there is a plethora of characters in this series, and that's typical of delinquent manga. So if you're the type of person who kind of likes your characters a little bit more finite, then you may not like this. And if you're, like I said, used to delinquent manga or like a variety of characters, you'll sit right at home, either from other series like Slice of Life series, whatever other type of anime or manga subgenres that have a variety of characters that you get to know. This show hits it. So you learn about like Takamichi, the main character, a bunch of his friends. As he begins to go back and do these time leaps, he starts to build clout inside of the gang that he initially ran away from. So then you start to learn more about the gang members and their emotions and their things. And a lot of the times they use the time leaps when he goes back to the future as segues into learning more about characters where we might have seen them or maybe not have heard of them, but we're basically going to learn about them. So once we see these names in the future, like, it's kind of the author giving you a hint of like, okay, well, now we're going to analyze this person in the past, which I thought was really good. I thought Takamichi was a great character. The thing about it is basically as he starts to get clout and develop more friends in the gang, you start to realize that, dang, I don't know if this is true of Japanese kids, but a lot of these Japanese delinquents have very, very poor home lives, either missing parents or just parents that work a lot or just very sad upbringings. But they all seem to maintain a very good and solid character in a lot of the cases. Sometimes they end up in the future becoming shitbags, but it's usually because of a lot of other reasons, and their past kind of helps with that. But they're usually not shitbags in the past. So I like how they kind of put that human element to a lot of these characters, where you really feel sympathy for the gangster in this story and what they do. And actually, the gang he's with is pretty good in the past. There's various triggers that happen with these time loops that turn them into more of like an evil gang, but most times they start in the past as a very good gang, and basically the story revolves around kind of figuring out, one, why his girl died, and also two, how the gang itself became corrupted. So I think they show a great job of that through the characters. There's characters like Mikey, who's kind of like the leader of the gang, who you grow an attachment with very quickly. And then as you learn more about Mikey, you just understand the deep level of sadness he experiences just on a day-to-day basis from a bunch of things that happen. There is also his like best friend and kind of right-hand man. We call him Draken, but it's like Ken Ryuji, I believe. He's also a pretty dope character, a lot of development. And their bond with Takemichi is actually really enjoyable, where they're more strong characters that kind of can stand on their own and handle business. And Takemichi is a person who can fight for his ideals, but actually doesn't learn how to fight. And a typical thing in delinquent manga is usually like weak characters don't ever really get stronger. Pretty much strong characters kind of stay strong, and they may have like challenging battles, but they're more or less strong through and through, and weak characters usually are just stuck there. And I think for Takemichi, this seems to hold true. He does show some development later on, no spoilers, but more or less him and everyone around him understands that he is not a fighter. He's not a good fighter either, but he's trying. So I think that was dope. I really just enjoyed the cast of characters. I liked a lot of them, and I like how they kind of introduced them. And usually it's in such a memorable way that you don't necessarily feel overloaded with some. There's a few you forget because they haven't really had like a memorable moment with the main character. It might be more of a background character, but his closest friends, like the main character, his girlfriend, like the little brother, you kind of all develop relationships with all of them, and it's really hard to kind of, you may forget their names, but you don't forget their characters. So I think that's dope. So that's all I had on the characters. Now let's get into the hype. So the hype for the series, I have heard a lot of people talking about it. Initially I thought it was just going to be a run-of-the-mill delinquent manga, but I think this definitely has the potential to bring a lot of people to the delinquent subgenre, or bring awareness to that delinquent subgenre. It just feels like one of those stories that are different and can pull people in, because it can kind of frame itself as like your typical shonen, get some people to watch it, and then as they get hooked, they begin to realize like, oh wow, I really do like delinquent manga and stuff like that. So I think this series, from what I'm seeing and what I've been hearing the community talk about, the ones that do read manga, if this gets converted into an anime, I think as long as the animation is done right, this will definitely be a hit. And it'll definitely bring people in. Like the action within the series is turned up a little bit to 11, a little bit more than some delinquent manga, but it's definitely made to look badass. So I felt like anime wise, or anime conversion wise, like people will get hooked. I can see clips of certain scenes circling all over the place. And not only that just emotional underbelly to the story. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of like those types of storylines in general, but this was told very well to the point where I felt for the characters. So I think that was good. And then lastly, let's get into my recommendation. So if you haven't been able to tell already, I really enjoy this series. It hits me for two reasons. One, I think the story is told really well for what I'm seeing. I'm interested and invested in the character, so when certain things happen, to them. I don't feel like, oh, it's just whatever. Like, I get excited at moments, audible excitement. I get audible, like, wow, what the fuck, that's crazy twist. And I get audible sadness for characters as well. So I think from that, it hit me on all those points too. I'm just a big sucker for delinquent manga. So this, I think, is a great starter series for anybody who hasn't touched the delinquent genre and wants to see if they like it. You'll definitely like this. And if you end up kind of liking the way the story's told, you'll probably lean into some other series like Crows or Worst. But if you don't, then, I mean, I don't know. I just think it's good. So my recommendation is you should definitely read Tokyo Revengers or Tokyo Manji Revengers for sure. It's a dope series. I think you'll enjoy every minute of it. Alright, and that's it for me for this Should You Watch. Let me know your thoughts on this video in the comments, and also let me know what other series you think that we should do another Should You Read or Should You Watch on. Peace.